All right, all right. What's up, guys? Matt here, Flex Trades. Hope everybody had a great start to their week. Broad market. I always like to start off these videos. Broad market SPY, QQQ. And today's action, kind of an inside day. The range was inside of Friday's range. We had a little bit of a blow off, and we stabilized within Friday's candle, both on SPY and QQQ. And that was kind of what I alluded to in last night's video, just how strong it's been over the last few days. And considering the last several weeks, the last couple months, really, of just this bearish downtrend, all pops getting sold, a lot of days, really the overwhelming feeling of just no bids at all. And then finally, at some point last week, or really you could go back to 2 Fridays ago, from that bottom of 380 on SPY, the sentiment's kind of shifted. And I've been talking about that for about a week now, that sentiment shift. For me, it really started last week. I felt confirmation last week post NVIDIA earnings. Their earnings report was not received well initially by the broad market. A slight gap down, NVIDIA with the gap down, broad market gap down a little bit, but the broad market kind of shrugged it off. And then the following day, really rebounded hard. And since then, there's been a plethora of strong action throughout the market, broad market, individual names, etc., growth names, a lot of stuff that's gotten beaten down very hard, especially over the last couple weeks and months, has really found its footing over the last several days. And so kind of where my head's at now going forward, and very similar to what I talked about last night with SPY QQQ, I really wanted to see an inside day. I talked about this last evening, perhaps a pullback down toward 405. I still think that this is constructive as far as bullish follow through, and with that potential for a retest up toward 430. This could pull back as low as 400 in my opinion. And as long as there's no overwhelming new negative news that comes out in the headlines, because again, you have to look at it from that perspective also. And I don't claim to be a headline guy, but it seems like for the most part, inflation news, war news, energy sector, a lot of stuff, oil, all the news seems to be kind of baked in at this time. And so you kind of have the ingredients there for an overshooting bottom bounce. And we've kind of seen that over the last several days. And the best recent example would be this bounce back here, right? There was an overwhelming sense of negative news, and all of a sudden we had a couple week rally and everything kind of felt back toward normal. And then of course we sold back off pretty hard. So, I'm not going to suggest that we're going to follow straight up to 430 or 440 without some ebbs and flows in between. But understanding how the market works and the psychology behind it, there's a lot of negative news baked into the price right now. And with that being said, if the broad market can hold up over the next couple sessions, maybe another inside day, maybe a pullback toward 300 on QQQ, maybe a pullback toward 405, maybe even 400 on SPY. And if it gets its footing there and kind of stair steps back up toward this 415 spot or this 420 spot, then the potential for, like I said, an overshoot to the upside is very much in play. And a note also that I had last night was that these rallies can sustain themselves longer than most think. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for a bounce to short it. And I mean, me personally, I've kind of been in that boat. I've been waiting for a bounce to make a trade off of. I've been waiting for some bullish action, a couple follow-through days of bullish action. And the thesis that I've been keeping is that if we get a bounce good enough, maybe I start scaling some longer out of the money, longer dated put positions. But I'm not quite there yet because, again, these bounces can sustain themselves longer than most anticipate. It's the same way on the downside. As things pull back, people get very impatient. There's chop. There's a lot of digestion, a lot of chop. People get impatient. And then all of a sudden, one day randomly, it just pops and then has a follow through. And so that kind of on the reverse side can happen where we're grinding higher, shorts get bent, shorts get impatient, and all of a sudden we rally, 10% off of lows, 15% off of lows, and everybody kind of forgets that short trade bias, that short trade thesis. So that's kind of where my head's at right now. I'm patient. I want to see this 405, 400 spot hold, and I want to see this stair step back up toward this 415, 420 area. And the potential for an overshoot toward 430 in my mind is kind of still in play. I do think that there's, and I've been talking about this for the better part of the last week or so, I do think that there's a lot of supply up in this 430 area. You saw this tested once, twice, 3 times, rejected each time, followed by a multi-week pullback. And then now we've got that bounce, but there was some solid supply up there in that 430 spot. So it's hard to visualize that we can just grind straight up to it and just blow straight through it without some further digestion. So we'll see going forward. I'm patient with it, but it certainly feels like we've got a week, maybe 2 weeks of some potential bullish follow through off of the last couple days, the last week or so, really off this bottom bounce. So I'm patient with it at this time. Continuing down the line here with Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a nice candle the other day, popped from 29,000 up toward 32,000. Really nice move. And there's this distinct micro channel that's been forming for a couple weeks now. And for me, it was really simple. If it broke below that, we have a real good chance of washing into the low 20,000s, especially if there was volume to support it. But the fact that this broke to the upside of this micro channel, now I'm kind of in the boat where, this could have follow through up toward this 35, 36,000 area. If this stays strong, if this doesn't fall below 30, 29,000 over the next few sessions, and if it can kind of keep grinding up here, I feel like at this time, path of least resistance is going to be up here toward this 35, 36,000 spot. Again, if this were to break down and lose all of this candle here and lose those gains within 1 or 2 trading sessions and all of a sudden we're back down to 28, 27,000, then of course I'm going to change my sentiment. But for the time being, it's kind of in a good spot as far as a follow through to the upside goes. I think pulling it out further, there's still plenty more digestion that needs to be done. I still very much think over the course of the next 6 months or 9 months or so that this pulls back down toward the low 20,000 area, potentially below it. It's hard to imagine that this bounce here is kind of that inflection point that changes everything and gets us out of that bear market territory. So like I said, I think the short-term outlook is favorable for upside, but I don't think that the bottom is in. I think that there's still room and for more downside, especially if we can slip through 28,000 over the next couple weeks or month or so. So that's really the 2 key spots that I'm paying attention for. A break of this micro channel low right around 28,000. I'm kind of excluding this wick here, by the way. And the upside area of supply that I'm watching is up toward 35, 36,000. I think if we get up toward that area, that's when the risk to reward becomes favorable again for a pullback and potentially more of a further washout to the downside. Continuing down the line now with Amazon, really just a great breakdown, in my opinion, that I've had over the last several days since this low down here about a week ago. For those of you who are paying attention to the webinars, I put up the inverse chart and I talked about how the risk to reward for further upside, which when looking at the regular chart, risk to reward for further downside was really starting to get asymmetric. And the key areas that I've been talking about were 2,200 and 2,300. We got that 2,200 break last Thursday, and then we got that 2,300 break this morning. We had a gap up, a little bit of a pullback, that opening range broke, and then we followed through very strong throughout the day, broke 2,400 and even got up into the mid 2,400s. So just an awesome move today. The bulk of my position I had sold actually on Thursday, and then I entered a little bit more Friday. I had a little bit going into this morning, and then on that opening range break, I added into that. So it wasn't exactly 5-star size. So it wasn't exactly a 5-star profit for me, but just the way the market's been over the last several weeks, I'm still very much respecting my rules and respecting the position size that I've had, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, I felt the thesis was very, very good. I feel like I drew it up pretty well. Now I'm in the boat where anything up toward 2,500 or into the mid 2,500s, I feel like there's going to be solid supply there. If you go back to the initial earnings gap down, there was a lot of supply up in this area, right around 2,500, a little bit above 2,500. So I think anything up in this area should be met with a little bit of force, with a little bit of supply. And then at that point, I'm going to be looking for this kind of pullback, reconstruct itself, and potentially stair step and follow through. I think going forward, as long as this 2,300, 2,250 area holds, and I'll draw a little box here just to kind of show you guys. I think as long as this area holds going forward, then this remains constructive for further upside. But again, the main trade for me is finished at this point. I've actually been building a position in Amazon and Google in another account in just equity, because I've been very patient, been waiting for a long time for a pullback in these two individual stocks, and I've finally been able to build a position. So that's been cool. But I'm very patient with it. Same thing that I was talking about with broad market, kind of the same look, some pullback, a little bit of sideways, and then perhaps stair step back up toward this 2,450, 2,500 spot and potentially follow through off that. But I think the main trade is over and done with at this time. At least for me anyways. There could be some left in the tank, but the main trade for me is over with. And now I'm just patient for some pullback and some sideways. SHOP, SHOP. I'm still very much eyeing this low 400 to 413, that area. I did notice over the last couple of days, Friday last week, and again today, the 400 calls for this week were just lighting up. A ton of volume, like 13,000 contracts traded today. I want to say around 10,000 contracts of that strike traded on Friday. And the only reason I really noticed that is because I it's rare that I see that kind of a number in this particular stock. Normally the most open interest or the most volume you see on this one is in the range of 2,000 or 3,000. So I've definitely taken a mental note of that. So over the next couple of days, ideally we can get a pullback down toward 350. I can build that intrinsic core position. And if we were to go up and break that $400 mark, I'm going to scale in the $400 strike somewhere around that area. Because again, I do feel like a 410, 413 break. I feel like there's a good chance to follow through up toward 450 or so. And that range presents a great opportunity for trade, either a intraday or perhaps swing trade. So that, again, that's really the line in the sand for me, 400 to 413. HOOD, Robinhood, talked about this one last night. I liked that candle on Friday. That candle from Friday engulfed the last couple weeks. So we had that large gap up a couple weeks ago. Now we've had a couple weeks of sideways digestion. And then Friday last week, we had that engulfing candle, or at least almost engulfing the last couple weeks of action. And I said last night, $11 is going to be the spot to watch. Over 11, I think this has range up to 12, maybe 12 and a half. So that's the trade that I'm still paying attention to, that I'm still looking to make a trade off of. But I'm building a position and I'm using 9.5, maybe down toward 940, 930 as my risk. Excuse me. So again, I guess the take home point here is just risk to reward. It's becoming asymmetric with about a 50-cent downside risk and the potential for $1.50, $2 upside if things work out. BA, We're retesting that high from a couple weeks ago, right around 133 or so. Another couple inside days, perhaps pull back to 128, 127, 126 or so. Couple inside days, and then stair step back up toward that 133 spot. I think this has room to make a trade up toward 140. So that's kind of the idea that I have in mind there. Looking to build that core intrinsic value position over the next couple days with a risk down into the mid 120s. And then BA, just more sideways, more digestion. I love the look over the last several days, but it's not something I want to chase. I very much want to see some sideways, and I want to see something similar to this. And for those that watch my videos religiously, you know I outline this a lot because it's just the most ideal situation. We had a strong few days. Rather than this just go straight up into the heavens, I'd rather see some sideways, right? And then collect some more chart data and go from there. And that wraps up my main game plan for tomorrow. I know it's been a rough several weeks as far as bullish trades and swing trades are concerned, but I also have just been preaching the message religiously every single day, every night. Just be patient, because if you're burning yourself out, if you're over trading, if you're taking dumb trades and blowing up your account before the actual opportunity's there, by the time that opportunity does arrive, you're just gonna be burnt out, and you're not gonna want to trade, and you're not gonna be in the right frame of mind to hit the foot on the gas pedal and really execute at a high level. So, same message that I've been saying: patience. Let the trades come to you. Let the chart data come, and it's a patience game, guys. It really is. That's half the battle, is just staying alive. So with all that being said, I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. And if anything new pops up tomorrow, I will let you guys know. All right, guys. Peace.